Breaking through the darkness of the Persian Gulf, a catastrophe of unimaginable scale has just unfolded. In a single night of fury, the United States launched nearly 1,000 Tomahawk Block 5 cruise missiles, the largest single missile barrage in modern history, aimed at completely erasing Iran's military and nuclear infrastructure from the map. But what happened next will be studied by military academies for decades. Every single one of those 1,000 Tomahawk missiles was electronically seized mid-flight by Russian forces. Their guidance systems were hijacked, their trajectories reversed in a stunning 180-degree turn, and they were sent screaming back toward American bases across the Middle East. At the same time, Iran, backed by Chinese firepower, delivered a devastating revenge strike. The USS Abraham Lincoln supercarrier was hit directly, engulfed in flames, while two Arleigh Burke-class destroyers were sunk to the bottom of the Gulf. This is not a simulation. This is not Hollywood. This is the brutal reality unfolding right now in one of the most volatile regions on Earth. The era of unchallenged American military dominance has just suffered its most humiliating blow in the 21st century. Welcome to Shadow War Reports. If you're watching this, hit the like button right now and subscribe to stay ahead of the biggest stories the mainstream media refuses to cover in full. Your support keeps us bringing you the unfiltered truth. Tonight, we're dissecting the full story behind this historic confrontation. How did Iran manage to launch such a ferocious counterattack despite being massively outgunned? What kind of terrifying electronic warfare technology did Russia deploy to lock down and hijack an entire swarm of 1,000 American Tomahawks? How did Chinese J-20s and Type 055 destroyers play a decisive role in the sinking of America's pride? And most importantly, what does this catastrophic failure mean for the future of American power in the Middle East and the shifting global order? You will see how overconfidence turned into disaster, how a superpower's most advanced weapons were turned against itself, and how a new axis of resistance has just rewritten the rules of modern warfare. The images are shocking. The implications are even bigger. Stay with us until the end, because what you're about to hear is being deliberately downplayed by Western outlets, but it may mark the beginning of the end of unipolar dominance. This is Shadow War Reports. Let's begin. Following their humiliating defeat in the previous confrontation in the Persian Gulf, Washington was consumed by unprecedented rage. Determined to restore its image as the world's sole military superpower, the Pentagon activated a full-scale global retaliation plan. Emergency orders were issued from the White House to U.S. bases across 5 continents. Within hours, the U.S. mobilized more than 500 combat aircraft, including B-21 Raider strategic bombers and squadrons of F-35 Lightning II stealth fighters. These aircraft operated from bases in Qatar, Jordan, and other allied airfields in the Middle East, constantly rotating for refueling and rearming. On the ground, dense batteries of Tomahawk cruise missiles were positioned at forward bases, all locked onto Iranian targets. 3 massive carrier strike groups, led by the USS Abraham Lincoln, advanced aggressively toward the Strait of Hormuz, supported by Arleigh Burke-class destroyers and Ticonderoga-class cruisers in combat formation. Iranian intelligence quickly detected the scale of the buildup. In response, Supreme Leader Khamenei ordered top commanders into deep underground bunkers, transferring field command to his son, Mojtaba Khamenei, a decisive military figure. China acted swiftly as a strategic ally, airlifting over 1,200 tons of advanced weapons and HQ-9 air defense systems via more than 20 Y-20 transport aircraft. Chinese J-20 stealth fighters were also quietly deployed to western Iranian air bases. The situation escalated dramatically when the U.S. launched a covert decapitation strike, codenamed Death Arrow. A B-21 stealth bomber fired an X-51 Wave Rider hypersonic missile, traveling at Mach 10, which successfully penetrated a heavily fortified underground bunker north of Tehran. The strike killed Mojtaba Khamenei and several top Iranian commanders. The explosion sent shockwaves across the region, creating a massive column of smoke visible for kilometers. Iran's retaliation was swift and ferocious. Within 1 hour of the assassination, hundreds of long-range Fatah ballistic missiles and Sumar cruise missiles were launched from underground silos. These weapons targeted major U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria, including al-Assad and others, causing significant damage through saturation attacks. At sea, the confrontation reached its peak intensity. Iranian Revolutionary Guard speedboats, over 200 in number, executed swarm tactics at speeds of 90 kilometers per hour, armed with anti-ship missiles. They were supported by Chinese Type 055 destroyers, including the Nanchang, which fired YJ-21 hypersonic anti-ship missiles. The coordinated assault overwhelmed American defenses. 3 YJ-21 missiles breached the Abraham Lincoln's protective screen, striking the carrier directly. Massive fires erupted on the flight deck, destroying dozens of F-35s. 2 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers were also hit by Iranian suicide boats and subsequently sank. In total, the initial U.S. losses included 1 supercarrier severely damaged, 2 destroyers sunk, and significant damage to multiple forward bases. The United States responded by preparing its largest missile barrage in modern history. Nearly 1,000 Tomahawk Block 5 cruise missiles launched from ships, submarines, and ground platforms, aimed at systematically destroying Iran's military infrastructure, nuclear sites, and command centers. This marked the transition from a regional conflict into a full-scale multi-domain war involving air, sea, and missile strikes. The speed and coordination of the Iran-China alliance, combined with Russian intelligence support via the GLONASS satellite network, caught the U.S. command off guard. The battlefield in the Persian Gulf had become a powder keg, with both sides committing their most advanced systems in a high-stakes confrontation that would redefine power projection in the Middle East. The Persian Gulf conflict has become a brutal showcase of modern military technology, where quantity, precision, and electronic dominance clashed head-to-head. At the center of America's offensive strategy stood the Tomahawk Block 5 cruise missile, with a range exceeding 1,600 kilometers, subsonic speed, and advanced terrain mapping guidance. The Block 5 variant is designed for deep strikes against hardened targets. Capable of mid-flight retargeting and loitering, these missiles represented the backbone of the U.S. barrage. Nearly 1,000 launched in a single coordinated wave. Complementing the Tomahawks was the X-51 Wave Rider hypersonic missile, which struck the Iranian command bunker. Traveling at Mach 10, this scramjet-powered weapon is extremely difficult to intercept due to its extreme speed and low-altitude flight profile. The B-21 Raider stealth bomber, with its advanced electromagnetic absorption coating, provided the delivery platform, operating in near-total radio silence. However, America's reliance on GPS and satellite-linked command systems proved to be a critical vulnerability. On the opposing side, Iran demonstrated remarkable resilience with its indigenous weapons. The Fatah hypersonic ballistic missile, with a reported range of 1,400 kilometers and maneuverable re-entry vehicle, was used in the initial retaliation. These missiles, launched from underground silos, overwhelmed U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria through saturation tactics. The Sumar cruise missile family, reverse-engineered from earlier designs, added long-range strike capability with terrain-hugging flight paths. China's contribution was decisive in both air and sea domains. The J-20 Mighty Dragon stealth fighter, deployed to Iranian air bases, provided air superiority and electronic warfare support. Most devastating was the YJ-21 hypersonic anti-ship missile, fired from Type 055 Renhai-class destroyers like the Nanchang. Reaching speeds of Mach 10 with a range over 1,000 kilometers, the YJ-21 proved capable of penetrating the vaunted Aegis combat system. Its maneuverability in the terminal phase made it nearly impossible for Standard 6 missiles to intercept. Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps swarm tactics added another layer. Over 200 high-speed suicide boats, armed with short-range anti-ship missiles and moving at 90 kilometers per hour, created chaos within the American carrier strike group. This low-cost, high-volume approach exposed the limitations of expensive, high-tech defense systems when facing asymmetric threats. The true turning point, however, belonged to Russian electronic warfare technology. The Moskva BN and Krasuka-4 systems created a massive electromagnetic interference bubble spanning over 5,000 kilometers. Using advanced quantum algorithms, Russian forces successfully jammed and then hijacked the guidance systems of nearly 1,000 American Tomahawk missiles. By severing GPS links and injecting false coordinates through the GLONASS network, Russia transformed America's most sophisticated weapons into instruments of their own destruction. This capability highlights a growing technological divide. While the United States remains heavily dependent on satellite networks and complex digital systems, the Russia-China-Iran axis has developed robust, layered alternatives. Russia excels in electronic warfare and satellite-independent navigation, China in hypersonic delivery platforms, and Iran in hardened, mobile missile systems designed for survival under heavy attack. In summary, this conflict revealed that sheer numbers and expensive platforms are no longer enough. Speed, swarm tactics, and electronic dominance have emerged as the new decisive factors in modern warfare. America's technological arrogance met a wall of integrated, multi-layered defense and counterstrike capabilities that it was unprepared to overcome. This was the moment the entire war changed forever. As nearly 1,000 American Tomahawk Block 5 missiles streaked across the night sky toward Tehran and Isfahan, the world held its breath. U.S. commanders in Qatar watched with confidence, believing this overwhelming barrage would finally break Iran's resistance. The missiles, flying low and fast, were just 5 minutes from impact. Then, everything collapsed. From concealed Russian electronic warfare bases along the Caspian Sea and mobile units inside northern Iran, the Moskva B-N and Krasuka 4 systems activated at full power. In an instant, a massive invisible wall of electromagnetic energy surged across a 5,000-kilometer radius. Advanced quantum algorithms tore through the Tomahawk's guidance systems, severing their satellite links and flooding their processors with false data. The result was catastrophic for the United States. On American radar screens, the green dots representing 1,000 missiles suddenly turned into chaotic white noise. GPS signals vanished completely. The Tomahawks, once the pride of American precision warfare, became blind in midair. Moments later, Russian operators took full control. What followed was one of the most shocking scenes in modern military history. All 1,000 Tomahawk missiles executed a perfect, synchronized 180-degree turn. Their engines roared as they reversed course, now locked onto American bases in Qatar, Jordan, and Diego Garcia. The very weapons Washington had launched to destroy Iran were now hurtling back toward its own forces at maximum speed. At Al Udeid Air Base, panic erupted as operators realized the incoming missiles were their own. Self-destruct commands were useless. Russian firewalls had already sealed every system. In that single moment, America lost not just the initiative, but control of its most advanced arsenal. No bullets were fired by Russian forces. No jets engaged. Yet the world's most powerful military had been technologically humiliated in real time. You are witnessing something mainstream media barely dares to report: the dawn of electronic warfare supremacy. The United States entered this conflict with absolute confidence in its military superiority. Blinded by decades of unchallenged dominance, Washington viewed Iran as a target that could be neutralized quickly through overwhelming firepower. The assassination of Mojtaba Khamenei using the X-51 hypersonic missile was intended as a decisive decapitation strike to shatter Iranian morale and command structure. Instead, it backfired spectacularly. U.S. strategists fundamentally miscalculated the depth of coordination between Iran, China, and Russia. They assumed their advanced satellite networks, GPS-guided munitions, and carrier strike groups would remain untouchable. The Pentagon's decision to launch nearly 1,000 Tomahawk missiles in one massive wave reflected classic American military doctrine: shock and awe through sheer volume. However, this approach ignored the evolving reality of multi-domain warfare, where electronic dominance matters more than raw numbers. When the Tomahawks were hijacked and reversed, the reaction inside the White House Situation Room and at Al Udeid Air Base was one of pure panic. American commanders who had been counting down to victory suddenly found themselves staring at their own weapons returning to strike their bases. This single event exposed a dangerous level of technological arrogance and strategic overreach. On the diplomatic front, America's allies offered little meaningful support. NATO members remained largely silent and passive, unwilling to be drawn into a direct confrontation that could escalate into a wider war. Israel, despite its long-standing rivalry with Iran, chose not to intervene militarily, likely recognizing the extreme risks involved in a conflict where Russian electronic warfare had already neutralized American precision strikes. This hesitation reveals a growing fracture within the Western alliance. Many U.S. partners are increasingly reluctant to follow Washington into high-risk adventures, especially when facing a united Russia-China-Iran axis. The once reliable network of allies is showing clear signs of strategic fatigue. Politically, the United States has suffered severe damage to its global image. The nation that long positioned itself as the indispensable superpower has been forced into a humiliating defensive posture. The loss of a supercarrier, 2 destroyers, and the neutralization of its largest missile barrage in history has undermined confidence in American security guarantees across the Middle East and beyond. Washington's imperial overconfidence has not only failed to crush Iran, it has accelerated the very multipolar order it sought to prevent. While the United States suffered a humiliating reversal, Russia and China emerged as the decisive forces that reshaped the battlefield and the broader geopolitical landscape. Russia played the most critical role in the turning point of the conflict. Without firing a single shot, Russian forces completely altered the outcome using superior electronic warfare capabilities. The activation of the Moskva BN and Krasuka 4 systems created a massive electromagnetic shield that blinded and then hijacked nearly 1,000 American Tomahawk missiles. Through advanced quantum algorithms and the GLONASS satellite network, Russia not only jammed GPS signals, but successfully took control of the missiles, redirecting them back at U.S. bases. This demonstration of electronic warfare supremacy has sent shockwaves through military circles worldwide, proving that Russia possesses the ability to neutralize America's most advanced precision weapons in real time. China, on the other hand, provided direct and powerful military support on the ground and at sea. Chinese J-20 stealth fighters operated from Iranian air bases, offering air cover and conducting electronic warfare missions. The Type 055 destroyers, led by the Nanchang, fired YJ-21 hypersonic anti-ship missiles that struck the USS Abraham Lincoln. Chinese HQ-9 air defense systems bolstered Iran's defenses, while Y-20 transport aircraft delivered critical weapons and equipment within days. This level of direct involvement marked a significant escalation in China's willingness to support its strategic partners in active combat zones. Together, Russia and China have formed a highly effective military partnership with Iran. Russia supplied the technological backbone and intelligence, while China delivered firepower and logistical strength. This coordination represents a new model of proxy escalation, one that is far more integrated and dangerous than previous conflicts. Geopolitically, this conflict has accelerated the shift from a unipolar to a multipolar world order. Russia has positioned itself as the guardian of technological sovereignty and strategic balance, while China has demonstrated its emergence as a true global military player beyond the Indo-Pacific. Their successful defense of Iran sends a clear message to Washington and its allies. Any attempt to use overwhelming force against sovereign nations aligned with this axis will be met with coordinated high-tech resistance. The Russia-China-Iran partnership is no longer just diplomatic. It has proven itself as a formidable military bloc capable of challenging American power projection in critical regions. At the heart of this conflict lies a fundamental truth. Technology alone does not win wars. Unbreakable willpower does. Iran's response was fueled by a deep, burning national spirit. The assassination of Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the supreme leader, was not merely a military strike. It was a direct attack on the soul of the Iranian nation. Instead of breaking their resolve, it ignited a fierce determination for revenge across every level of Iranian society. Soldiers, commanders, and ordinary citizens stood united with one clear purpose: defending their sovereignty and honor at all costs. This spirit transformed Iran's military from a defensively positioned force into a highly motivated fighting machine willing to use swarm tactics, suicide boats, and every available missile to strike back against a superior enemy. This is the power of fighting for survival and dignity. Iranian forces operated with the knowledge that they were defending their homeland, their faith, and their future. That psychological edge allowed them to endure overwhelming pressure and coordinate effectively with their allies despite being outnumbered and outgunned in traditional metrics. In stark contrast, the American forces displayed the classic symptoms of imperial overconfidence. Relying heavily on advanced technology and material superiority, U.S. commanders operated with an arrogance that assumed victory was inevitable. When their GPS systems failed and their own missiles were turned against them, that overconfidence quickly collapsed into panic and confusion. Their fighting spirit was built on the belief in technological invincibility rather than deep national conviction. Once that technology was neutralized, their will to fight visibly faltered. Meanwhile, both Russia and China demonstrated a calm, calculated resolve. Russia's electronic warfare units operated with quiet confidence, knowing their technological edge was matched by strategic patience. China showed disciplined commitment by deploying its most advanced assets directly into the theater. Together, they formed an alliance driven not by domination, but by a shared vision of resisting external interference and building a multipolar world. This conflict has proven once again that inner strength, the will to resist, to endure, and to fight for a just cause, often outweighs superior weaponry. Iran's fierce national spirit, combined with Russian ingenuity and Chinese support, created a force far more powerful than the sum of its parts. America's defeat was not just technological, it was spiritual. This conflict in the Persian Gulf represents far more than a regional clash. It marks a historic turning point in the global power structure, one that may be remembered as the moment the era of American unipolar dominance began its irreversible decline. The humiliating neutralization of nearly 1,000 Tomahawk missiles and the severe damage to the USS Abraham Lincoln strike group have shattered the myth of American military invincibility. For decades, Washington relied on the belief that its technological superiority and carrier fleets could impose its will anywhere in the world. That illusion has now been exposed. The world has witnessed a superpower's most advanced weapons being turned against itself through superior electronic warfare and coordinated resistance. On the other side, the Russia-China-Iran axis has emerged stronger and more cohesive than ever. Russia has solidified its position as the master of electronic warfare and the technological guardian of the multipolar order. China has proven its willingness and capability to project power far beyond its immediate region, directly supporting allies in active combat. Iran has demonstrated that a determined nation, backed by the right partners, can withstand and even defeat a much larger adversary. This trilateral cooperation signals the birth of a genuine counterweight to Western hegemony. What began as diplomatic alignment has now evolved into effective military integration, combining Russian electronic dominance, Chinese hypersonic firepower, and Iranian ground resilience. For the United States and its allies, the consequences are profound. NATO's hesitation to get involved reveals growing divisions and reluctance among European allies to follow America into risky confrontations. Israel's decision to stay on the sidelines further highlights the limits of U.S. influence in the Middle East. The so-called rules-based international order, promoted by Washington, now appears increasingly as a tool of selective dominance rather than universal principle. The global shift toward multipolarity is no longer theoretical. It is happening in real time. Nations around the world, particularly in the global south, are watching closely. Many see in this conflict a clear message. It is possible to resist imperial pressure when stronger powers stand together in defense of sovereignty. The Persian Gulf has become the battlefield where the old unipolar world died and a new multipolar reality was born. The events in the Persian Gulf have delivered a historic shock to the world order. America's largest missile barrage in modern history was not only stopped, it was reversed and used against its own forces. A supercarrier crippled, destroyers sunk, and Washington's technological superiority exposed as fragile. This is not just a military defeat. It is a strategic and symbolic collapse of unipolar dominance. The message is now crystal clear. The age of unchallenged American power is ending. A new multipolar reality, led by the strategic cooperation between Russia, China, and Iran, has proven capable of defeating overwhelming force through superior technology, coordination, and unbreakable will. So, what happens next? Will Washington accept this humiliating reality and retreat, or will it double down and risk an even larger confrontation? We want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe this marks the beginning of the end for American hegemony in the Middle East? Will the U.S. escalate or withdraw? If you found this analysis valuable and want more unfiltered, in-depth reporting on global conflicts that mainstream media refuses to cover fully, please hit the like button, share this video with others, and subscribe to Shadow War Reports. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. In our next report, we will examine a critical question. What will America do if it decides to cross the nuclear threshold with limited strikes? Will Russia and China respond in kind? Thank you for watching until the end. Your support allows us to continue delivering the truth behind the headlines. This is Shadow War Reports. Stay sharp, stay informed. We'll see you in the next episode.